everyone. How are you all doing today? It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Are we waiting for more people to show up, or we're good? Oh, all right. Mick, are you good? Okay. Sorry? We'll start. Okay, so we're going to wait 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. So just take a moment. Hopefully you got some of the flyers. If not, maybe we'll, okay, good. We have a handout. We can also give you a QR code, but there's a lot of numbers there. I feel like there might be some numbers people in this room. So take a look and see if there are any questions, any things that come up for you. We'll have time in a little bit for you to ask questions. Oh, yes. Quick check-in and make sure if you have a phone, turn it off or do not disturb. And we'll start in a minute. I don't know what you're saying. Oh. All right. I see someone else coming in. All right, welcome. Come on in. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Rebecca Kanara. I'm the Senior Manager of Educational Programming at the Giving Spirit. We have some amazing folks here with us today. We have Chantel Spriggs, who is going to share a bit about her story, but she's also here representing Safe Place for Youth. We have Markeisha Babers, we call her Kiki, and she's a spoken word artist. She's going to share a bit of what she does. She's part of Poetic Arts Collective. They have an amazing collaboration with the LA Times that they've just been launching, and we get to hear a bit of her art today and hear from her and her story. And then we have Sarah Bemke, who is the Director of Empowerment Programs at Safe Place for Youth. So she'll share with us a bit more about this amazing organization that we have here that serve youth. But before we get started, we want to share a video with you about the Giving Spirit. We were highlighted in the news recently, and we just want to give you a little bit of information about what we do here and what you'll be doing with us today and why. And then we'll hear a bit from Tom, our fearless leader, before we get started.
And an LA-based nonprofit is taking a different approach here. It's packing and distributing survival kits to 3,000 women now living on the streets. NBC4's Gordon Tokumatsu shows us the impact these kits are making.
So beautiful.
Oh. For women, the streets are an especially perilous place. Most flee abuse. Many have children to care for, hiding constantly from predators. Almost no time to focus on what's so important to their sense of self.
They want to feel like women out there. It gives them their dignity back.
It's the reason Tom Bagamani's Giving Spirit nonprofit is passing out 3,000 personal care kits, specially designed for women, this week.
Great.
Detroit, who now works for Giving Spirit, showed us what's inside the garment bags, stuff you may not think would be important.
We have coconut oils.
To someone living in a tent, but she says you'd be wrong.
Perfume. More perfume.
In and out of homelessness since the 1980s, Detroit Hughes always kept her sense of human dignity front and center. Little things like a purple lipstick, a nose ring, bracelets, and rings. Always anticipating, she says, the day when she might be found dead.
I wanted my kids to be able to recognize who I was. I know that purple lipstick from somewhere. I know the hair from somewhere.
Tom says honoring and respecting human dignity out here on the streets has another benefit as well, ultimately solving the homelessness problem.
For them to believe that society really gives a darn about them, they have to feel like they're human again.
That, he says, is the first step toward permanent and supportive housing. Out here, hopelessness is what prevents people from taking steps to get there. The bags are carefully assembled, then distributed to wherever the women are, with Detroit and other volunteers making the first personal connection. Then they get everything from loofahs to feminine hygiene products to soap and deodorant. One less thing, she says, to worry about. And these tiny gestures...
You and I both, we know.
Rebuild hope. In Playa del Rey, Gordon Tokumatsu, NBC4 News.
Hi. You guys hear me? Do you mind if I take my mask off? Sorry, I should have asked first. So, K1 in the house. Come on, let's get some energy. All right? I just can't tell you how honored we are by your consistent, loyal, and loving support. Neil and Kate and the entire K1 family have been incredibly generous and kind with their time and their resources, but to expose you, the culture, to what we do and to interweave you, integrate you into how we walk the walk. And that's really important. As men and women of business, you know, we have a dual obligation to leave an imprint on our culture and our legacy in this life. We hope with our educational programming and with Rebecca's leadership that we will expand our capacity beyond Los Angeles and make our model consumable to people all around the world. And you're going to see and hear a significant piece of this today. It's important for us, so we believe in a closed-loop solution when it comes to poverty. The short tail, or the first part of the loop, is what you're building today, physically, right? So that care can helps people survive for weeks and months at a time. When you see how much is going out in the streets, because I don't think any of you have been exposed to the Winter Kid Assembly, it's our biggest give. You'll be overwhelmed by what they get, but then you need to take a beat and understand how far that goes for someone who has nothing. And if you had nothing, how far you can make a box of crackers go. It's amazing, especially if you're feeding your children. So that's the short tail. The long tail is why this occurs, is communication, is education and community awareness, is really exposing everyone to the real truths and realities behind poverty. Because a lot of those factors can be mitigated if we understood the source. We take the shortcut a lot of times through stereotypes, through fear, through just, we're too busy to really truly understand the stories that exist around the people that live on our street corners, in our parks, in our overpasses, and live in their cars and in multiple families and hotel rooms. The stories you're going to hear today will change your lives in terms of your experience, but we want it to change and put a crease in your soul, because we want you to draw from these women and their experiences to make better decisions for us as a society, but as you are influencing others, whether it be your own families, your colleagues, your friends, it's really important. If we are going to make a difference in the narrative, we have to come from truth. We have to come from real experience. At the end of the day, I'm not an advocate for the homeless. I'm not an advocate for the poor. I'm an advocate for the truth. Because at the end of the day, that's what wins the day. And as we've seen, it's been fleeting over the last few years. But what you're going to hear today is truly the reality of poverty, but the reality of hope. So, Rebecca, the floor is yours.
All right, let's give Tom a big hand. Thank you, Tom. Before I ask these amazing folks some questions, I just want to see a show of hands in the audience. Who here in this room has experienced homelessness or knows somebody who has? Okay, so few hands, right? Let me ask you it a different way. When you walk down the street on your way to work, when you're leaving to go, maybe you're taking your kids to school, whatever it is, when you're going home, have you passed someone on the street this past week who looked like they were probably homeless, who might have been sleeping in the streets? Just a show of hands. Has anyone had that experience? Okay, now we've got everyone in the room. So we're here today together because this touches all of us. And I want to share just a personal story. I also didn't raise my hand when I first heard that question the first time. I was actually the person who asked the question. And I didn't even remember my own. I knew I cared, but I didn't remember my own experience and my own connections. And when my children were very young, my father-in-law chose to sleep in the car instead of tell us that he had been evicted. He chose days and days in his car instead of just telling us the simple fact that he had lost his housing, and we were there to help. We were nearby, right? That stigma is real. And I also realized in that moment when that question was asked, and I hadn't raised my hand at first, as I heard other people share their experiences, that my own grandfather, when he fell into depression at age 82, because his checkbook, he was an accountant, it was off by 10 cents. And he went into a severe depression that we had to fly across the country and figure out what the hell was going on, because he said, excuse my language, what the heck, I'm in a church. He said he was going to lose his home, that they were taking everything away. But he had invested well. When we got there, we saw that wasn't the case, but his trauma of being evicted, losing his home in a young age of 5 or 6 in the Great Depression, that's what did it. His trauma carried with him until his 82nd year, when it came up again when that little thing of a checkbook being off balance, right? So just to say that we're here today together because we want to focus on homelessness, but we want to focus on homelessness and how it affects youth in Los Angeles, right? So when we think about the numbers, we have an amazing amount. We have a 30% increase in homelessness since 2015 in the United States. It was actually getting better in 2006, but and going down and down in numbers until 2015, it started getting worse again. But in LA, that whole time, it was getting worse, to the point where in this town, in this county, we have 66,000 people last year who experienced homelessness. But the numbers of youth are even more stark. We have 4.2 million youth in the United States any given year that experience homelessness. And so when I'm a mother, so when I think about that, my 13-year-old, that means 1 in 30 of her peers are going to experience homelessness by the time they're 18. And it means my 18-year-old, 1 in 10 of her peers by the time they're 25 will experience homelessness. So it's dire, it's urgent, and it affects all of us. And one last number to throw your way, and then I want to focus on stories, and I want to get to the people behind these numbers. But in LA, I thought it was 4,000 youth. I was corrected by the leader of Safe Place for Youth on Friday night. It is 4,700 youth who are experiencing homelessness in LA on any given day. So California overrepresents. We have 1 in 5 of the homeless youth in the country, in the state of California. Anyone been to Dodger Stadium? Show of hands. Yeah? We can fill Dodger Stadium over almost 5 times with the number of youth who've experienced homelessness in a year in California. So all that to say, we know it's important, we hear those numbers, but these are people who we care about, who we want to know that they can have a chance at a different kind of experience. And so I want to start by just asking you to please just give a round of applause and welcome to our panelists. Again, it's Chantel, Kiki, and Sarah. And I'm going to ask Chantel and Kiki a few questions first. Can you tell me, Chantel, share with us a little bit about your story, your journey?
So I came out here when I was 25. Oh, I'm 25. I came out here when I was 20. I had actually maybe a few days off, so 19. I came out here because I lived in Georgia, and I moved around a lot as a kid, and I have family out here. I don't have a lot of family. It's just kind of one branch, and I didn't know them really well at all. And my dad at 18 gave me an ultimatum to either, it wasn't really an ultimatum, it was just, you can do nothing and we move without you, or you can go to California with your family out there and go to school, which is cheaper. It is cheaper if you stay here a year. And I ended up coming out here with people that I really didn't know. I didn't go out with them, and I had only met them one time before, and we didn't actually get along then. So it didn't work out. It took a month for it to not work out. And what I did was I walked to LAX from Culver City. Then I went to go and find a public library, and then I Googled homeless drop-in centers and found 5. And I've been with them for 5 years. They helped me get housed. I got in Santa Monica College with them for computer science. I did Code Talk with St. Joseph Center, which is the HTML boot camp for women and women identifying people. And you get a certificate after. And I started an internship with SPY that allowed me to really get financially stable and kind of start building those interview skills, which allowed me to get a part-time position at SPY and then turn into a full-time position. So it's been 5 years of being in California and experiencing that. I was homeless for about 2 of those years. After I found SPY, I ended up in a RV with a friend, her mother, and her sister, who was 11. So also being homeless with a child and making sure that their needs come first is actually really hard too, because whatever money you have for whatever, it immediately needs to be spent on child and like Long John, something warm, make sure he gets to school. So that was also really hard. But after a while, I think, especially with SPY in St. Joseph's, I got housed and was able to get financially secure. And I now work in education and employment. So I'm the education and employment youth liaison, which means the members come in asking to get a job for one of our internships, we have our own internships, to go back to school, get GED, anything like that, they come to my department for it, and I help out. I've helped out members with FAFSAs. The past week, today, we had 3 members get onboarded for our internship at the garden. So they work with our garden staff and us to ensure that they are housed. So basically, I help others where I was before.
Wow, thank you so much. Please, yeah. It's amazing, your journey and that you've turned it around to now really be of service to others. I appreciate you for sharing that. And the piece, I'm still stuck on the fact that you walked from Culver City to LAX.
So I didn't know about courtesy rides. That's not a thing anywhere else. I mean, I've been on public transport my whole life, but yeah, I really wish I'd known about courtesy rides, because I absolutely would not have done that. That had to be, honestly, the worst part was just the amount of walking, because I've only been out here for a month previously, and before I've only visited for a couple of days. So I had no idea where I was going. I didn't have a phone or any internet, so I had to rely on other people and asking around at establishments to get around to find a library.
Yeah, and you're speaking to also, like, I've heard a lot that youth, the kids, if they find themselves in the streets, they don't know necessarily all the resources, right, that are available the way maybe adults might know, and that their experience is different because of that. And Kiki, you talk about walking as well. Maybe you can share a bit about your story and your journey.
So I became homeless with my mom when I was 3 years old, and we stayed shelters, cars, hotels, and different stuff like that for a while. And I wound up going through an experience in one of the co-ed shelters that we were staying in, where it's like a mix of men and women and families. And I went through an experience, and I was like, nope, can't do it. And so I decided that, like, I'm gonna leave, and like hopefully like I can like get a job, go back to school, come back, and like be able to help my mom instead of like her having another mouth to feed. Like, I wanted to just make it easier. So when I was 15, I ran away from the shelter we were staying at, and I wound up being homeless by myself on the streets. And my plan of attack was like, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna get a job. But then I didn't realize like how many limitations there are. So like when people say that to like people living on the streets, and they're like, well, why don't you get up and get a job? Like, you're just lazy. And I'm like, okay, in order to get a job, you need an ID. And if you don't have your ID, you need your birth certificate. And if you don't have your birth certificate, you need your social. And in order to get all of that, you need each one. Like, you know what I mean? And so like it's almost impossible, especially for someone like me. I was born in Houston, Texas. So in order to get my ID, I need to pay a certain amount of money to have my birth certificate sent from Texas, but to what address? So how am I ever gonna get it? And so I spent a little while on the streets at 15. I finally got reunited with my mom after a while. We were still in shelters. And I was just kind of like on and off the streets until I was about like 24. So I finally got a little bit of stability, and I've been performing poetry since I was 15 years old. That's been like my only saving grace. I've been writing it since I was 9. And so I finally found like an avenue for me to like, I knew if I like focused on something that I really love to do, then like my situation would turn itself around. Like I still like had to get up and put the footwork in, but I knew like if I let myself just think about like all these bad things that are happening, like I'm never gonna be able to take a step. Like I can't like move with the weight on my shoulders. So I'm like, I have to do something to focus and like push some of that weight off my back so I can finally take steps to lift myself forward. So yeah.
Thank you, Kiki. Please give her a round of applause too. Yeah, I'm wondering if you can, both of you, when I think about when, Kiki, you talk about running away at 15, and so I'm thinking about that first night, right? That first night that you don't have that safe place to go. And so I wanted to know if there's either of you, if you want to share a bit about what that first night felt like.
I think for the first night, I was just running on pure adrenaline, so I didn't actually get a chance to think. I think it really hit the second night, and once it really more hit once I figured out, I need to get to a safe place of youth, because that was the organization that came up when I Googled. Once I knew I kind of had a destination and the next step and like something solid, then I can let myself like, okay, so now I'm in this situation. The other time I think it hit really hard is right after. So Safe Place of Youth opens Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday back when I did. So after Thursday, you kind of have the whole weekend of doing nothing when you're homeless, especially as a youth, because a lot of places won't let you in to think, especially in the morning before like a library opens. That's another time where it like hit really hard as I was waiting for the library to open and going, okay, so this is my days now.
Yeah, I mean, so the resources are out there, but they're not necessarily there 24/7. Right. So even Safe Place, this amazing place, is not always open, and the libraries, and with COVID, I'm sure you all know, right? The libraries closed, and so people didn't have a place to go to be warm or to charge their phones. These crucial things that can help them stay connected, or Google support services, right?
In the bathrooms.
Bathrooms, right?
Establishments usually don't, and if a homeless person comes in, the bathroom key is mysteriously broken or is mysteriously out of order and it doesn't work. But the next customer will come in with ordering something and it mysteriously works again.
Yeah, that discrimination is real. It really, yeah, thank you. Kiki, also for you, like if you want to share about that first night when you were 15?
Yes, so for me, when I first got on the streets when I was 15, we were staying at a shelter in Watts. And I had left and I was just, I think it was just the adrenaline. I was like, I went through this experience and I was like, I just have to get up and go somewhere else. And I wasn't really like thinking about anything. And like, I wound up like being followed by this guy like for a long little while. It's actually a funny story. I'd say I like had like a spirit dog with me because there was this dog that came up and like it would never let me touch it. Like every time I tried to like grab it, it would like run away. But then like every time I turned around and started walking, it like followed me. And that was the only thing that stopped the guy from ever approaching me, was that every time he tried to approach me, the dog would like, be like, no, And I finally found this porch of a lady who used to live in our neighborhood. She was an older lady, and I was like, you know what? I literally don't know where I'm gonna go. I don't know what to do. So I'm just gonna sneak on this lady's porch and go to sleep. And that's what I did. And we woke up in the morning, and the lady was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "But I'd rather be here." Like, and that was like when it really hit me. When I was like, the ultimatum of like picking the lesser of two evils. Like, you know what I mean? Like, either way, like, she could have, like, had, like, family there who was like, who is this stranger? And, like, they could have tripped on me. Or I could have stayed out on the street all night and risked, like, that type of danger. So I think that was when I first it really just hit me hard. Like, I'm gonna have to start like deciding what type of danger and what type of harm I allow myself to go through, because it's gonna happen either way. I just have to choose the lesser way, and that was the hardest thing.
Oh, and remember, 15. She's 15, right? And making these kinds of choices. And you both are really speaking to that, to the choices that you had to make, but also the choices that people were making of whether to help you or not. And so I just want to thank you and appreciate you both for sharing that. I'm going to ask you a few more questions in a moment, but I want to ask you, Sarah, if you can share a little bit. We've been talking about SPY, Safe Place for Youth, also, and how they were there at a time when Chantal really needed them. So you want to share a little bit about what you do at SPY and why it's a unique place?
Absolutely. Thank you, and thank you both for sharing. So my name is Sarah Bemke. I'm the Director of Empowerment Programs at Safe Place for Youth. SPY's been around for just about 10 years. We provide, we started as a drop-in center, I should start there, when we provide essential services to unhoused and at-risk youth. Ages 12 to 25, which is transition age, or otherwise known as TAY. At our previous site, which is now being redeveloped into a new access center with 2 floors of residential, which is very, very exciting. We were open, as Chantal mentioned, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We had showers, a clothing closet. We had an education and employment program, which Chantal got involved in. We have a healing arts program. We're really providing wraparound services. Case management, clinical. So when a young person comes in, they may not be ready to receive services. They may be being traumatized actively because, sleeping on the street is going to do that, or any number of other living situations. They may not think that they want to get a job yet because they don't have the ability to actually be thinking about the job. There's other needs that they have. So what we want to do, what we have always done, is try to meet youth where they're at and find a way to connect with them so that we can help them towards their goals. Now, those goals may be mental health goals, and we may need to meet those mental health goals before we can start working on housing or employment or education. We're now in a new site, also in Venice. We're there during the redevelopment, and we're open 5 days a week now, which is very exciting, Monday through Friday. And we're really focusing also on more programming, because we know that programming is what helps our members, our young people, connect with the services they need, which then leads them, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it leads them faster to housing. It leads them faster to jobs, to internships, to completing school, to going to school for the first time when they haven't already done that. We have a really, really dedicated team of staff who have varying life experiences, and I think that that's also something that's very special about SPY, which we really try to make sure that we have staff who have lived experience. We have staff who are have had experience in the juvenile or the justice system, foster care. So we want to really make sure that the staff that we have can also connect with the youth that we have. And we also, at this point, we are considered a homeless service agency because we have housing programs as well. So we are the subcontractor for the Bridge Housing Program in Venice, where we have just about 50 beds. We have 2 transitional housing programs, both on the west side, and we have 2 family programs. They're called the Nest, and many of them have young children living there.
And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How welcome are you in your new location, and how welcome are you being? How are you being received with your new housing programs?
Great question. It's always a gamble. We're always like, oh, how's the neighborhood going to feel about us coming? Because of course, when we come to the neighborhood, there is risk that there will be people who come through the neighborhood people who live there may feel like they don't want them there. I kind of want to take the opportunity just to talk about how we are all neighbors. Everyone who is living in a community is a neighbor. And so we really try to address that with the neighbors of our locations. Having an open house, explaining to people what services we have, encouraging people to communicate with each other, because we all live here together, and because we are in a public health crisis, like, it's up to all of us to address that together.
Yeah, I want to ask everyone in this room a question for a second. I'm going to steal it from Tom. But tell me, with a show of hands, if you believe that there should be housing for everybody in Los Angeles. Okay, so keep your hands up if you believe they should be in your neighborhood. How about on your street? Okay, thank you. That is not usually the response. The hands go down. So I want to just appreciate you all, because right now that is the crisis, is that it's very hard to find folks who will support in any neighborhood in Los Angeles to have new housing like Safe Place is working on. So thank you. Please keep encouraging more and more people to support housing in their neighborhoods. So Sarah, are there any current challenges that you want to tell folks about when it comes to what youth are experiencing right now in LA?
Yeah, I mean, we're facing a couple. Some of them have to do with COVID. We had to get people off the streets very fast, and there was funding identified to put people, maybe people have heard of Project Room Key. Folks were put into these hotels and then trying to figure out what the next step is going to be for identifying more permanent housing. I'm going to answer by saying housing, but I'll answer it in a couple ways. There are foster youth who are aging out at 18. They have, the foster system allowed youth to stay in just a little bit longer because of COVID. Now those youth are aging out of the foster system. I think that every time an organization like SPY, Venice Community Housing, anytime an organization like that is coming in and identifying a new building that would be taken over by housing, or to build new housing, there's a fight with the neighborhood council. There's a fight that has to happen to really prove to the community why. Because there's a lot of confusion around why housing is really needed. But housing is needed.
Yeah, and actually I want to come back to Chantal and Kiki then about housing. So just take you back to that moment you first had your new home, wherever and whatever that was, that key that you received. What was that? What did that feel like? But also, do you still have any fear? Like, when you go to sleep at night, is there fear that you're going to fall back into what you've experienced in the past?
The first time I got my key, I got my key with my friend that was living in her RV with. So we got a 2-bedroom apartment. It was just us. Not a great neighborhood. It was like, where was it? It was in a jungle. It was on August. So but still, we were elated. It felt amazing. It felt like finally stepping up. It didn't feel quite like everything has come together, because it definitely hadn't, but it definitely felt like a right step in the direction. And sleeping on the airbeds that they gave us for the first night, it did feel like a king-size mattress, which is great. It didn't feel like that the next day, but it felt really great the first time we got the key.
Thank you. And yeah,
I think I missed one.
No, I just wanted to follow up with are you just like, I'm good now, or is there any fear that this is going to happen again?
Yeah. There's always fear that just slightly in the back of your mind that you're like, well, I hope, everything's going well. I paid my rent. Everything's on time. And when an event comes up the next time, I'm paying it. Hopefully it's still good, and she's not like, hey, I gotta talk to you or anything. It's still that very back in your mind, like, I hope this is okay and my housing is okay. That you think to yourself every so often. Hopefully I don't get evicted. Hopefully nothing happens. Everything's good. Nothing, make sure your payment. It's always something. Like, you're always in the back of your mind when when rent comes up, making sure that scrambling to make sure everything is good, because it's still always the back of your mind that, oh yeah, I could get evicted and be back where I was.
Yeah, that we're always, like any of us, and that's the part we always have to remember, is we could be one crisis away from losing our housing, losing our connection and resources. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody who was homeless before doesn't still have that one doubt in the back of their head.
So how about you, Kiki? How about that first, that key, getting that place?
I honestly was super excited. I jumped over everything. I was super excited to finally be in a place of my own for the first time. What was interesting for me though was I like to bring awareness to sometimes just getting a place isn't enough. Cause I was able to get my own place, and then within 2 weeks I was moving in all of my friends from the streets, and I'm in a studio, a full studio. There's nothing in here but a TV and a little bed, and I'm 5 friends that I stayed with on the streets are living in this studio with me, and we're got camp pallets out as if we're still outside, and that's when I came to the realization that you actually have to be providing Sarah said, the mental health part. If you don't take care of the mental, the emotional, the trauma, then people will go and set up whole tents in their apartment because that's where they feel comfortable. They haven't been able to break that. I've been homeless since I was 3 years old, so there's never been a time where I wasn't sleeping around someone, whether from when I was a kid, it was my family. We would always have to cuddle up. We would always have to huddle here. We would always have to do this. And then when I got older, you gotta find a group of people to be around, especially for a young woman. It's hard to be on these streets by yourself. So it's okay, I'm gonna make friends here, I'm gonna make friends here, and I'm never gonna walk this way by myself, and so you're always with someone, you're always finding, okay, we can find this abandoned house together. You look out while I hop in the window, you're always with something. So the first time I was alone, I completely cracked, just under, it got quiet for a second, and I just broke, and I was I actually have to fix internally my trauma and my mental health before I even have the capacity to get to take care of a home. Because also there's a lot of teaching that you have to do and go through, things that you don't learn on a normal basis. When I first got my place, I tried to pay my rent in cash. Don't do that. The lady looked at me and was I need a money order. I'm I'm trying to help her $1,200 in cash, and she's no. Don't do that. So but I was also, that also played in my mind. I'm oh my God, now she thinks I'm dumb. It was already hard to get this place because I don't have credit, and someone else co-signed, and the lady would always call my co-signer before she ever spoke to me, and I was oh, I'm trying to be an adult, but yeah, I think there's a lot of other things that go also into play with getting people off the street and keeping them off the street. Because if you get 10 people off the street, but then 20 hit the street, then what really happened? You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, taking care of internal as well as the external at the same time is very, very important.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say the same thing, because once we got our house, we got our apartment, it's two 20-year-old, well, I probably was 22-ish, two 22-ish-year-old girls who just lived in an RV. We had no idea how to cook. We had to cook clean, but not really keeping the house together, and it was just a mess by month 2. I had a friend who brought in a whole adult to stay, and I already knew him, but I was we can't do this because our on-site manager lives across from us. But it's just I need to help my friend who helped me. But also, if we do that, we will lose our housing. And so it's also trying to set up those boundaries too. You can't just give somebody a house and then walk away. Yeah. It's they won't know what to do with that. It was good for getting that step up to stability, but only because I had support from SPY looking in and like always checking in on me, my case manager. But if I was just given this apartment and we'll check back in on you in a month or so, and the check-in was like a minute long like it usually is, then that whole first year was like a mess.
Yeah, I think you're all speaking to, like, it's not this straight line, right? That we can fall in and out. Homelessness is temporary, and we want to remember that. But it's also not a straight line that once you're just given that key, there's so much involved in recovering from the trauma that you all shared about, and having the people that stay connected with you, that help you along the way of whatever your needs are. Thank you for bringing that point forward, because that really matters. Sarah, one other question for you. This is kind of rhetorical, it's self-serving, but I'm just going to ask you, how important are dialogues like these in the work that you do?
Very. I think that if we don't talk about it, there's no way to share this information. So kind of echoing back to what, and we don't get to talk about those barriers. So Kiki just told a story about having friends stay and setting up a tent. Like, of course that's what you would do, right? But what you don't get to hear is also, if that happens and you're on a certain type of voucher, you can actually get kicked out of your housing and lose your housing, but you're actually trying to protect yourself by having your community around you, which is what helps with your mental health. And if you go into, if you go ask for housing, there's a number of different options. You can do emergency shelter, you can try to get a housing voucher. Some of these options, you're gonna wait for 3 to 6 months. And where are you while you're waiting? So there's just so many barriers and so many spaces for lack of understanding. And so I think that what these dialogues do is really help us to be able to connect and share. And also create more understanding, because if you don't know what's going on, how can you possibly understand?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, so tell me, what's one thing that's giving you hope right now?
Well, I mean, I think that this is going to be really a simple one, and it's a small example, but we are redeveloping SPY. We are redeveloping that space, and so even though that might be something that's like directly affecting my life and Chantel's life and the youth that we work with, we also were able to prove to that community how important the drop-in center is. We were able to prove to the community how important the housing units, I think it's 42 units, something like that. And because we can do that, I think that really gives me hope. Because sometimes in this work, when you're going through the experience of not having a home or not knowing where you're going, and on any level there can be just like a real lack of hope. And a lot of frustration, and a lot of just like, a lot of frustration. And so it really gives me hope knowing that we can prove these things to one community, and that community is the Venice community. And so what else can we do?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and Kiki, I want to ask you, in that hopeful way. I mean, you and Chantel, you both talked about this community that you need around you. So what's some message you would want to give to youth who are out there right now, who don't have a safe place, who are looking for that safe place for tonight?
Some technical advice: find places high up. So rooftops are really, really good places to go, because then you're not being walked past all night, and you don't really have to take shifts sleeping with your friends. Like you still have to be cautious, because the securities, if they catch you, will try to kick you out. But if you find rooftops and high up places, they are the safest places to sleep, because people are not just able to just come and bother you while you're sleeping. Some heartfelt advice would be, you're not your circumstances or your situation, and everybody is deserving and everybody is worthy of something, and everybody has something inside of them that they're really, that they really connect with, and if you focus on that, that will lead you in the right direction. If you find something that you're really passionate about and that you really, really love, and you focus on that, that passion will drive you where you need to go, as long as you follow what it's telling you to do.
Thank you, Kiki. And how about you, Chantel? What message do you have for the youth out there?
For sleep-wise, I'll be honest and say the first 3-4 days I slept outside, and then I slept in an RV with a friend I had just met. Not also the greatest plan, but I will say sleep in areas that I wouldn't say sleep in super dark areas, because then it's easy for somebody to attack you and then nobody sees it. So like kind of areas that are lit, and if you yell out, there are people nearby who will come. I would also say just in general, if you're on the street, the first thing is to make a plan. You may have like 90 things you want to do, and you're all trying to do it all at once, and it feels like a lot, and that's why it feels like a lot, because they're trying to stuff 90 things. Instead, take like 2-3 big items, like I need this, and then work on those 2 and then move on. So you'll still do everything, but I see a lot of people, even when I was, my friend did this, who I lived with, she had so many items. I want to get this certification, I want to go back to school, then I want to do work, and then I need my birth certificate ID, and all of those are exactly what you want to do, but just managing that and knowing to not overwork yourself to get everything, because then you burn out.
And what's giving you hope right now, Chantel?
Giving me hope is I work in E&E, so I like seeing our people graduate school, people who go into internships for the first time. I like when people, it brings me hope when people bring me back as their first paycheck, meaning they have that job because we get an incentive, but it means it's becoming more and more stable. It gives me hope when we have our interns go on to do great things. We have a garden intern who did not even speak. They did not like speaking, couldn't make eye contact, and now they're at a bigger business that we work with, and they send us emails every week about how great that member is, and they're customer facing for it, they're salesperson. And it brings me hope when people graduate school or bring me their tested papers, or even asking me to help, because they're asking me for help, that means they want to go to the next step forward. So I guess it's also just seeing all the successes of people getting education and employment.
Oh, wow, yeah, thank you. Yeah. And how about you? What's giving you hope right now, Kiki?
One thing that's given me hope is, yeah, I've said it before, and I'm just gonna have to say it again. Seeing my little brother thrive. You know, he was like homeless with us for a little while, but he got to live like the rest of his childhood, like stable and in a home, and just seeing like the difference in how he's thriving and what he can focus on. And he's like, I want a camera because I want to be a photographer. And like him actually being able to have those dreams and like be in these different programs and be able to focus on something other than like what he's going to eat or like where he's going to sleep. And it's a beautiful thing. And that's why I want to just continue to work to like make youth homelessness not a thing anymore, because you know, I think people underestimate what kids go through a lot. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, you're a child. What could you possibly be going through? And you're like, puberty? Hard. You know? So it's like, it's always like a lot of things at one time. And so, you know, being able to just focus on things that he loves is like really giving me hope.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you so much. Let's give Kiki a round. I think when Kiki talks about her brother, what always hits me is so a few more numbers. There's 20,000 youth who are experiencing homelessness in LA Unified, and that's an undercount. But at the same time, 70% of these youth are still graduating high school. And Kiki isn't sharing it with you today, but she was an honor student. She went through a lot. There's youth experienced double the number of suspensions, more than double the number of missing school because of experiencing homelessness. And so, you know, despite all that, despite all these choices, that these very beyond adult choices, a rooftop, or where am I going to shout out? Are any of you thinking about that tonight when you go to bed? You know, the choices that they're talking about are not just adult, but they're more than that, right? And they're crisis, extreme crisis. And so I just want to end today with just thanking all of you for being here today. I want to appreciate Chantel and Kiki for sharing your stories and sharing those moments that were not easy. I know they're not easy to share. And to thank you, Sarah, for all the work you do. And we're here together. I want to thank all of you for the time that you're taking to think about this, right? To think about youth, our youth here, our neighbors in Los Angeles and all across the country, but really taking that time to think about it. And I just encourage everyone to think, you know, okay, what does this mean for me? Because it means different things for each of us. What is it bringing up for me? But what do I want to do about it? Who's in my circles? What can I do? What can I reach out? Who can I reach out to? And just talk about it. Or maybe there's more that I can do. And I'm so grateful for this community at K1 who's going to be here today volunteering for the Giving Spirit and building these really essential kits. I was in a meeting last night with a group that's receiving the kits. They're floored by what's in there. So you'll see when you build the kits. There's 60, I think, different items. It's incredible, and the thoughtfulness behind it really stands out to people who are handing these out to people who are right now in need of essential items in the streets. So I want to thank all of you, and then I'm going to ask Kiki to come up and give us, she's going to send us off today with a couple of her spoken word pieces. So thank you, everybody.
Hello, how are you guys doing? I'm Kiki, and I'm going to be doing 2 spoken word pieces for you guys today. And the first piece that I'm going to be doing is called Christmas Tree. I want to pick one, a real one. I want to strap it to the top of the car, take it home. I want to pull out a box of decorations that's been in our family for generations. I want to help cook Christmas dinner. I want to leave milk and cookies out on Christmas Eve. I want to believe Santa Claus will bring presents. But see, we ain't got no Christmas tree. There's no room in a 4-door unless you count the red and green car freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. No chimney either. I've grown accustomed to Christmas mission dinners. There's 10 people to a room. So before you go eat, they say, take anything precious with you. I grab my little brother in my arms, take my mom by the hand, place my other hand on my older brother's back, tell them one day we will have our home back. But how can I expect them to believe that when I don't? When it's been this way for 7 years, I've cried so many tears I could drown myself in my pillow. And believe me, I've tried to be a normal little girl. Once, I wrote a letter to Santa Claus. But I guess what I wrote was a normal little girl request that said, Dear Santa, I want to pick one, a real Christmas tree. I want to strap it to the top of the car, take it home. I want to pull out a box of decorations that's been in our family for generations. I want to help cook Christmas dinner. I want to leave milk and cookies out on Christmas Eve. I want to believe. I want to garden. I want to plant seeds and grow things besides stereotypes. I want to celebrate my birthday in my backyard. I want to have a water balloon fight without all the restrictions. I don't want a friend, not a bunkmate, but a friend. But most of all, I want to be a kid again, only if you can, Santa, only if you can. But you'll have to give it to me personally, because we still ain't got no Christmas tree. Thank you. And this next poem I'm going to be performing for you guys is called That Girl. People only see me as that girl. That fat girl, just a little too black girl, always sitting in the back girl, that girl. People tell me, you're weak, girl. No one wants to hear you speak, girl. Look at me. I'm not at your feet, girl. Stop crying, girl. It's not like you're dying, girl. No one will like you for who you are, and your career definitely won't go far. Not with that hair, those clothes, those shoes. You really need to change all of you, girl. Sometimes I tell myself, you know, depression ain't cute, girl, and you should stop waiting and do what you have to do, girl. I mean, if you're gonna end it, then do it already, girl. Just make sure you keep your hands steady, girl. You wanna get it right, girl. Just wait till night, girl, to get the knife, girl. It only takes one slice, girl. Look at you. Too weak to take your own life, girl. But God told me, aren't you tired of waiting to die, girl? All you have to do is try, girl. I gave you life to live, girl. I gave you your gift to give, girl. I am always here, girl. It's okay to shed a tear, girl. Just don't fear, girl. Because you are that girl made strong enough to carry the world on your back, girl. So stand up straight, girl. You will be great, girl. It is your fate, girl. Don't worry about the past. Remember, who is first shall be last. So you've endured the worst, girl. Now it's your turn to be first, girl. Then God held out his hands. He said, take this, girl. Don't waste it, girl. You'll know when to use it, girl. It's a miracle, girl. Like you are a miracle, girl.
Miracles. Thank you, Kiki, so much. So I'm a little speechless right now. I know I've heard you do some of this before, but it's just every time. But you are a miracle, and thank you. I want to open it up for a moment, just 5 minutes, to see if there are any questions that folks have for our panelists before we sign out today. And so Sally's going to go around with the microphone. Sally's over there. But if you have a question, please ask anyone in the panel. We'd love to hear from you.
Well, thank you all, but that was really incredible. It was really amazing to listen to. But thank each of you. All those stories were awesome. I was thinking, a big thing sounds like, of course, getting into housing, but then what's that next step? So do you all kind of partner with also like local businesses, whether it be simple stuff to, I don't know, something even bigger, to kind of incentivize and get people also in the door with like internships and stuff like that as well?
We do. So we have our Higher LA internship, which we do through LGBT Center. So what it is that a member is technically paid and working through the LGBT Center, but we as SPY find places to place them. And we work with local businesses to place internships in their business. So we'd pay the intern still, but we are placing it in their business so they can learn. We've partnered with Stray Cat Alliance, REI, The Garden, the Book Truck Organization, which is the internship that I did for SPY. And we also, different nurseries, but we also tell members that if a business is willing to place you and a business is willing to do that and you find one, then you can totally do the legwork yourself and we'll handle the paperwork if we think they're good and a good fit. So we do try our best to partner with outgoing businesses, especially in Venice, to place our interns.
Any organization or business, as long as there's a location that's a business location, can be a location for an internship.
Thank you. Yeah, Sally, I was just trying to show you. There's a question over here.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your stories today. It was very heartwarming, and I know, don't want to speak on behalf of the whole firm, but I'm sure we're all very grateful to be here today. I'd like to know what can we do, like tactically, and how can we help with this homelessness crisis and the public health crisis we're going through right now?
I'll just throw in that the handout you have has a whole "What can you do" piece, so please study it and feel free to write to me, Rebecca@thegivingspirit.org. I'd be happy to talk with you more about it. But I'm wondering if anyone here on the panel wants to talk.
Yeah, I think one of the things that can be like immediately done is like making information accessible. Like, you know, if you know of different organizations, different drop-in centers, different place for youth, or just homeless people in general, like, you know, making pamphlets or flyers and like putting them in different places where they're accessible, libraries and different stuff like that where they hang out. Because I know one of the major things for me going on the street as a youth was that I was never given any information throughout my going to school afterwards. I was never told like where would be a safe place for me to go. So for a long time, I was 15 and I was like telling people I was 18 because it was the only way to get into drop-in centers, shelters, and stuff like that. So until like I finally like broke down to my counselor and I was like, I'm actually only 15 and I can't keep doing this. And they were like, oh, okay, well, then yeah, we have a resource for that. And I was like, well, that would have been nice to know, like on the wall, like, you know. So I think like just helping and making information accessible and like the legwork that y'all doing now, like this is like super important. And I would also say like treat homeless folk like people, you know, because they are. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me. Like, you know, my friends used to try to find ways to make money, and like they used to allow people to kick them for $1. And it would be like a young girl and a grown man kicking her for $1. And then he's like, no, I didn't do it how I wanted. And he wants to do it again, but he's only giving her $1. And it's so degrading and so messed up that like, I think just treating them like people, just the, hey, how you doing? It's nice, I seen you yesterday, hey, like you pass them in the hallway, like, cause they're so used to being treated like they're nothing. And so I think, yeah, just being kind.
Yeah, I think you want to go? Yeah.
And then you can find out what services they need that you might know about if you're talking to them. I also think that you can think about what you don't need anymore if it's in your home, maybe clothing. You may have hygiene items. You may stay at a lot of hotels. We accumulate a lot of things when we have a space to accumulate them. And so thinking about what things that you can share. Of course, money. Maybe that seems like an obvious one. And just thinking about what I'll say partners you already know. So do you know businesses? Do you know people who like to tutor? Do you know artists? We have a healing arts program. You know, there's so many ways to, like yourself, do something, but also connect your community to, and then educate. So if you're here, you're reading up, you have the Giving Spirit handout, you're gonna maybe contact Rebecca, then you can share that too when you sit down at Christmas and you're you know, or Hanukkah with your family, and you can share that, and that is helpful.
Yeah, thank you. You want a question? All right, Tom's got a question.
No, I want to kind of answer that.
Oh, okay.
Part of the answer to that question as well. Yeah. So, from our perspective, I mean, you guys answered a lot of what I was going to say, but it's time. You have to dedicate time to this issue, and it goes back to what I said earlier. You know, we are also focused on our careers and our families and our own worlds, especially during COVID when we had to hunker down and really focus on surviving and taking care of our families. Now that we're emerging out of this, God willing, in the next 6 months to a year, it's really important to take the time and understand the stories and the lives that we don't know about, and we're making huge decisions about. When you do take the time and peel off the layers of skin, it's not that many layers to understand, what somebody like Kiki had to go through. I mean, she went through 15 different schools before she graduated, and she still was an honor student, and she still graduated. I mean, and hearing her talk about the fact that she never had a bestie because she always had to leave. I mean, being able to relate to poverty is our goal, right, in storytelling. As Rebecca is building out. As I shared with Neil and Kate the last time we had a chance to be together, we're so proud of the fact that we brought Rebecca on to create a curriculum program. So we're creating curriculum for schools, for companies, and for living rooms, for homes. So we wrap around our content, and we have amazingly written curriculum, and we have an engagement model attached. So there's a call to action, there's learning, and there's awareness. It's told by precious souls like this. So there's a lot of information out there there's a lot of noise out there that's prohibiting you from really understanding the truth. Stereotypes, fear, and the fact that you guys, are young and you've got your careers all in front of you. This is the best time to invest in these people. This is the best time because you can do something about it. Time and treasure. You work in an amazing culture, right? This doesn't happen in the companies all over the city. It should. What Neil has built and Kate has built, this culture, if you go off to create your own companies, not anytime soon. I'm protecting your assets here. But when you do have a chance to lead as they lead. Lead as you've learned and that you develop your own path. But that's how these women made it. And I'll just leave you with one thing. And the one word that I always take with me when I hang out with these heroic people is resilience. And I've known Kiki for a while. This woman should not be alive. She should not be alive. She's alive because she focused, she beat the challenges, and she made it. Why shouldn't everyone at age 3, at age 15, that grows up in this country have that same opportunity, no matter where they grow up, what zip code and what tent they might live in? Why shouldn't anyone be denied that chance? So that's how you can make a difference, is understanding and taking the time and working for companies that give you the time during a business day to be here to help us help them. Thank you guys very much.
All right, thank you everybody. Thank you, Tom. I want to thank all of you, but really thank everyone here. Chantel, Kiki, Sarah, thank you so much. All right. Thanks everyone. I know you have work to do now, build some kits. So we're going to leave it at that. But thank you for being here today.